Hey there guys, this is TC Made with BinanceTrade.info, and today I wanted to try and walk you through setting up an Amazon web server to then install the Gekko trading bot, which you can find online at gekko.wizb.it. I am not the creator of the Gekko program, but I'm just going to show you how to install an Amazon web server so that you can get an opportunity to experience this great program. If you want to get it on GitHub, we'll go through that here in a little while from Ask Mike. Ask Mike has a package out there for this. This is Mike Van Rossum. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but you can also find him on YouTube under Ask Mike, and he has some great tutorial videos regarding this project. What I would like to go through is how to set up the Amazon web server. So what we would do first is sign into the console. If you do not already have an account here, you would create a new one. I'm not going to go through that process. Once you do have your account created, you would then be able to log in. And what you're going to do is go under the compute section under EC2, and you're going to launch an instance. What I do then is I pick the free tier options, and I'm going to go down to Ubuntu Server 16.04, the LTS version. I'm using 64-bit, and I'm going to say select that. It's going to then bring me the option for general purpose T2.micro, which is free tier eligible. And I'm just going to say review and launch. We're going to go through here and launch this. It's going to ask me for a key pair. I'm going to just use an existing key pair because I did one yesterday. I'm going to do a new one using this. And I'm going to say that I have access to that and launch this instance. Once I do that, I would then go into my instance and view it here. I have another one running. This is a new one we're setting up, so we'll be using that. It'll take it just a couple of minutes to initialize. While we're waiting for that, again, I want to talk to you a little bit about this open source project for Gekko. The reason we're setting this up is because this actually allows us to install a bot that we can use to trade cryptocurrencies on various exchanges. I use the Binance platform. Obviously, you know that. I'm BinanceTrade.info. And it's really a great project here with a little bit of playing around with this. You have an opportunity to get in and work with a lot of things. We're going to go through installing Node and Git and downloading Gekko, etc. Now that we have our micro instance running on the Amazon web server, let that initialize. It's going to start here in just a second. And you'll see that it's going to give us our IP number for that new instance. But what I'll do is I'll click to copy this to the clipboard because we're going to need that in just a moment. So now that I have that initialized, we're also going to go over here and launch this wizard into the security group section while that's working. And on our inbound settings, we already have our SSH protocol in here, which is what we will use to go and set this up. And our outbound is currently set for all traffic. Under the inbound section, I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to add a rule in. And this rule is going to be for HTTP traffic. I'm also going to add one in for HTTPS traffic. We're going to add in a custom one, and we're going to use ports 3000 to 3002, and we're going to assign that with the 0000 with periods in between those and the /0. Usually it pops right up whenever you do that. And we're going to save that. Now, let's see, the first part of the port range must be equal to or smaller than the second part. Oh, typo. Bing. Got to be smarter than the machine sometimes, guys. When I hit the outbound section, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add in a rule for custom 3000 to 3002 with our 0.0.0.0/. We'll also add in for HTTP and for HTTPS, just to get a couple things set up that we might need later on. If you're having trouble watching the video at the speed that I am speaking, feel free to slow that down on YouTube or watch the video several times until you get exactly what I'm working on here. In the dashboard, we're going to go back over, and we have two running instances here. Again, I'm going to go to the second one, which is still in the process of initializing. There we go. Okay, so now that we have everything installed there and we have our IP number, we'll be able to connect to this through our PuTTY client. But what I want to talk about real quick, I'm going to go back to a video that I made the other day and insert that in here because it talks about how to generate these key names for use with PuTTY. By default, when you create this up, if you let it walk you through the process, it'll create a key file, which will be in a PEM format. And PuTTY comes with a tool that you'll be able to use to convert that into a PPK, which will then be able to be used to access your server through a PuTTY client, which will allow you to type commands into this and install software from the background. So I'm going to pause out of here for a second. I'll add the other video in when that's over. I'll come back and we'll go through the rest of this process. Okay? The next thing we want to do is go to download PuTTY, and you can just get this from a Google search to find the latest site. And there's a 64-bit install, which is the one I'll be using. You might use 32, I'm not sure. But basically, once this is installed, you will then have the PuTTY client, which is going to be used to go and log into our Ubuntu instance. Okay, now that we've downloaded PuTTY, we're going to go in and go to our PuTTY section. And under PuTTY, there is a program here called PuTTygen. We're going to load. You're going to download your thing here. It says successfully imported the foreign key, which is SSH-2 private key, the old PEM format. To use this key, you need to save the private key command to save it in PuTTY's format. So you're going to hit OK and hit Save Private Key. Okay, so hopefully you're able to follow along with the generation of your key name and everything for PuTTY. And now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we actually are going to go in and connect to our PuTTY tool. And what we will do in here is under the SSH section of PuTTY, under authentication, we will go in and browse for our key, which is our PPK file. And up here in our session address, we are going to go in and paste in that IP number, and we will open up our connection. It's going to tell us that the server's host key is not cached in the registry. We can just hit yes, and our login will be under Ubuntu. So once we do that, we will have connections in here to our client. And if you do a dir, there's nothing in here. Now, what I did the other day is I actually created a file that can be used inside of the Ubuntu software. Sorry, I'm trying to expand this out so it's easier to see both of these things, and my mouse is a little funny. But anyway, I have a file here that I'm going to paste all the text from this into your command window for you on the YouTube video, and I'll probably put a link to this somewhere out there. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to create a script called install_Gekko. It'll be a .sh file. And then when you run this using the commands that I'm going to show you in this video, it'll actually go and step through every one of these. If you're not familiar with the PuTTY interface, which I was not either, I'm not a PuTTY or Linux guy at all, what you can actually do is if you copy this text one at a time, you can go over into your PuTTY tool, and if you right-click your mouse, it will paste in the command. Okay? So if you're one of those people who prefers to go through each thing step by step, you'll be able to do that. But I'm going to show you how to actually create this entire installation file all the way down here to where we verify our running instance. And then there's some manual configuration you'll have to do after that. But one of the commands inside of PuTTY is called nano, and that is a form of like a text editor. And what we're going to do is type in install_Gekko.sh, and what that will do is create a file for us called install_Gekko.sh, which is what I gave you the name of here. Now if we highlight and copy all these things that are in this file all the way down to the node Gekko UI, I'm going to control copy that. I'm going to click in my window here and right click. And if you scroll back up through there, you'll see that we have in fact put in, where'd we go? Should be a page down key in here, so there you go. I had to hit page down and page up to refresh everything, but there's our bin bash and all this sudo apt-get blah blah blah. It's all in here, and it'll be pasted in as part of what you're doing. Some of this may change. When I was doing this initially, I had an error with my nodejs installation with the version, so I modified that. The new version of the nodejs may not actually require this npm installation because I think it's now part of the setup for that. But anyway, whatever file's in there will be the right one to use when I get done with it. So after you've right-clicked and pasted this into your file for the installation, you can see here that you have these keys. Now this is the Alt key and the Control key. So the Control key is the up little caret symbol, and actually the one for the Alt key you can't see on here. It's on one of these pages if you expand this out. This M is actually the Alt key. You can find out all the information you need to about Ubuntu and the installation tools that they give you for that. What we're interested in though is we want to write this file out. So if you look here, there's actually a Control O. So I'm going to hit Control O, and it's going to say what is the file name to write to. And here it's called already install_gekko.sh, and we're going to hit Enter. And it tells us that it wrote the 39 lines to the file. And then we're going to hit Control X, which you can see here is our exit. So Control X takes us back out. Now if I hit dir again, we'll see that I have an install_gekko.sh file. And just so you guys know, if you're not familiar with the way that this Ubuntu is set up, it's kind of like an old DOS shell, except in here you'd have cd space ... which would take you back directory. See, now I'm at home directory. I can hit cd and the tilde symbol. That takes me back to where I was. But anyway, once I get in here, the next command that I would run now that I have that installation file created is I can type in sh install_gekko.sh and hit the enter key. And what's going to happen now is this will start processing all of these commands that we have typed in there. So I'm going to do that, and this is going to start to run, and it's going to start to do all of our installations. Every once in a while this is going to pop up and ask you if you want to authorize something that's getting ready to be written. And all you'll have to do is hit the Y key for yes and hit enter to allow it on to the next installation piece. If you get any kind of errors or warning messages, they're nothing really to worry about at this point. But we're, again, just trying to set this up so that we can get on to the next portion of this for the installation of Gekko. So when it says, do you want to continue, we're going to say yes and hit enter. And we should be okay there for a while to let this package run. And once that is done, I will be back to walk you through the next part of the installation. Okay guys, I'm back here with you to talk a little bit about this installation. So if everything went well, you should be all the way down here to where it says nodegekko-ui, and it'll run everything, and this will pop up and tell you that it's serving, and the port that you're going to see is going to be wrong for your install. If you're on a server like Ubuntu, this is actually going to need to be changed, which is what this part is about here. So initially it's going to have a different IP number than what you'll see here. You're going to hit Control-C to stop that. I usually just hit dir to refresh, make sure everything's in there. And after I do my dir and get me back to my CD of Gekko, I usually just copy this line for the nano web view. From there, we're going to copy. And again, clicking in the Ubuntu the Ubuntu window and right-clicking, we can paste that in. So when I do that, it's going to take me right into the editor for web view in the distribution folder for UIconfig.js, and it'll have this data in here, and we're going to basically modify this to match what we have here, and you're going to replace that with your IP number. In this install it was 18.221.8361. That number will change for me, but for you, whatever you have for your IP number that you got back there on your AWS client, that is what you would put here. Now I want to point out for a second real quick here, there are additional installation instructions that are given to you at the Gekko install directory. I'm going to show it to you real quick. Underneath this documentation for the installation, there is to install Gekko on a server. If you scroll down here, there's a whole section about configuring this nginx as a reverse proxy. And it talks about the security model that you want to set up, and you need to go and put all these things in there. Again, if you copy this data and then right click in your Ubuntu window once you get to the section where it is, you'll be able to go in and edit your file to match this and set up your security model. The one thing I want to point out too is this is the location of that, which the way that they have this written here is a little bit different actually. What I did is I copied this just up to here, and I'm not actually doing this to mine, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. But after we modified our config file to match up our data and put our IP number in, again we would hit Control O. We're going to write that out, and then hit Control X to exit. And then I'm going to go back to my directory again. Now here I would go cd ... and that's going to take me out of the Gekko folder. Then I would go cd ... again. That takes me to home, and cd ... one more time. If I do a dir there, I'm all the way down into the lowest level of this. I was probably there at this point, but again, I'm not a Linux guy. But it gets me back to here, and if we look at that installation, it says /etc. Well, that's where I located that /etc folder. So what I can do now from here, I can say paste that in, hit the home key, and just say cd space, and now I have the command for change directory to that location. And you notice I left this default off of there. The reason I did that is because it's actually the name of the file. So if we hit enter here, I can hit dir, and you can see that I do have a default file in there. So here, if I said nano default, I'm going to get that file, and I'm going to page down through there, or I can use my arrow keys to toggle down through it or whatever. What's going on here? I must have hit something by accident. It's okay. I'm getting out of there anyway. Okay. Now, what that actually was starting to say was that I don't have any write permissions for that. So what you would do is to hit sudo nano and then default. Sudo nano default will give you temporary permissions to be able to do your write out. When you hit Control O and write it to the default, it'll show you it wrote the lines, and then Control X would exit out of that. So during any of these installation pieces that you're doing manually, if you have any kind of an issue with permissions, you can usually type sudo in front of that thing, and that'll give you the permissions to make your changes. The reason I said earlier, I'm not setting mine up like this right now because this is a test case server. I'm just running some basic demo stuff on here. These IP numbers will be destroyed and changed because they're going to be publicly released on videos and things. So for me, in this particular instance of the video, I didn't even go through the trouble of figuring all this out. It should work, but if it does not work, then your helpline for this whole thing would actually be to go to the forums that are located on the Gekko thing. So if you go to forum.gekko.wizb.it, there's a pretty active community here, and you'll see that there's all kinds of stuff in here. You can go to technical discussion and talk to people about, you know, what's going on and how to install or fix that whole thing. Okay, so that basically should get that portion of it up and running. And then the last part of this now is that since you have modified where you are, you're going to hit CD and the tilde symbol, then CD to Gekko, and in our Gekko directory, if we type in node Gekko --UI and hit enter, we would then see the port that we're serving at. Okay, so that should get everything running for you, and then what I do is I just fire up Google Chrome because my other browser doesn't really work that well for that, and I'm going to hit enter to take me into that IP number, which was listed here. Okay, again, temporary for me. But that's going to get you into Gekko, and you're going to be running. And what I'll do now is I will show you briefly how to set this up. One of the commands that we put into our install file actually went in and updated the markets for Binance, which is what I use. You can do the same type of thing if you go in and look for these market files. There should be some type of an update program for them in that same directory that's here. I didn't go and look for those because I honestly am not using them. But if you are, feel free to look around. If you have any questions, you can always hit us up on the forum, or hit us up like it's my forum. But if you have questions, hit the forum. Someone will try and help you. Once you get in here, you would go to Live Geckos and start a new Live Gekko. And from here you have the options to do a paper trader, a market watcher, or a trade bot. Now a trade bot actually needs a config for an API key which you can get on your exchange, and I will show you that portion later on in a future video. But for now, if you just go to Live Geckos, start a new Live Gecko paper trader, you can pick your exchange, which I'll pick Binance, and you can go in here and pick your currency. Of course, I love XRP. And you can go into your strategy and you can pick from the ones that are available here. Okay, this is to get started. It kind of gives you an idea. I would initially set my time down on a very small scale, and I would go in here and I would say start, and just verify that everything's running the way that you hoped that it would. So this is going to take a little second to warm up. I'm using 1 minute candles, and it's going to trade in 39 seconds. It'll start looking at this, and you'll see your market graph here. You can double click and zoom in on these and slide through your ranges. Actually pretty cool the way it's set up, and it'll default back in a second. But if you let this run, it'll eventually tell you, whether you're making money or not using that strategy. Okay guys, hopefully that helped you figure out how to get your AWS install and configure it to run Gekko and got you all up and running. Just wanted to point out real quick on some of these live geckos that when you go and pull in a strategy, you'll actually see parameters over here. And what you can do in some of these, if they're configured that way, is you can actually change your parameters here, and it tells you even what it's expecting in that. But let's say you want to do a 15/30 with a signal of 9, and you're going to go for 15-minute candles or whatever. You can go and change these parameters and use them to figure out whether or not those settings help with the strategy. And you can also do that in this backtest platform. So to backtest, you would actually go in and scan for an available data set. And here I don't have any because I just created this. We're going to go, let's add some. And I don't have any imports running, but I can start a new one. So if, let's say I wanted to go to Binance and I wanted to go against BTC, I can go and pick a date range and hit import. And when that gets done, I would then have the listing of all the trades that happened in Binance for USDT BTC pairs. And I would be able to go into my backtest tool using that data set and running a strategy with various configurations against it under this paper trader setting to see if my tweaks to these strategies actually helped anything. Okay, and all of that stuff that I'm talking about, again, you should be able to find all of that thing on the website at your Gekko, at your Gekko website. There's constantly new documentation and things being added. They tell you how to create your own strategies, the ones that they already have configured on here. It's a lot of work is going into this, and again, there's a pretty active community. There's also one of the guys on YouTube that you might be interested in. I'm going to go in here real quick and see if we can find. This guy's name is Crypto 49er, I think it is. And this guy, you'll want to check his information out because he actually has a bunch of Gekko videos, and I've watched some of his stuff to help me figure out what I need to do to get this video off the ground for you guys. So he talks about how to set up different strategies in here, and he's actually active in the forum community for that section as well. So I want to make sure you go and like and subscribe his videos because he is putting out content that's helping the community, and if it wasn't for guys like him, guys like me wouldn't be out there helping people like you as well. So again, if the video helped you guys at all, go ahead and subscribe and follow us for more content to come, and let us know what it is that you're interested in finding out. The BinanceTrade.info website is being constructed as we speak. It will be a place where I will be storing all the different video links for the things that we're putting out in our content. If you go over there and look around right now, it's kind of like tumbleweeds are blowing through an old burned down town because I'm just busy with other things. But eventually it will be up and running, and hope to see you guys there. Again, this is all for educational purposes and to try and get you guys some information to help you make trades. I'm not a financial advisor. Do not take my information as trading advice. All right. Hopefully you guys had a good experience with this video and you get an opportunity to learn something. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Thank you very much, and we'll see you at the next video. Okay, here's a bonus content for you guys. As you can see, we're serving our Gekko out here on this UI, on the user interface for this web address. Well, what happens if I close Ubuntu? What do you think happens? Boom, disconnected, right? It's because you're no longer tunneling out there and serving up that content through that instance with the proxy. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. If we go into your authentication here, again, I'm going to use my external file, and I'm going to go back to my web address. My goodness, like crazy here. So I'm going to go back here to get into this Ubuntu and cd Gekko. Well, instead of going in here to start everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out from this main directory cd / here, or take 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the front directory here, and I'm going to type in the word screen. Screen actually brings you into a program inside of Ubuntu and probably any other Linux install. You can read all this until it tells you a little bit about what it does, but I'm just going to hit next page and get out of there. Now I can go cd Gekko and node Gekko --UI and hit enter, and it's running Gekko here. And I'm going to hold down the control key and A, and then I'm going to hit D. After I get down, hit control A, release it, and then hit D. Control A and D will actually exit out of there, and I can type in exit, or I can type in dir. I'm outside of that instance of screen. So I have Gekko running over here again because it's being served up in this container that's been launched in its own little world. And I can do other things on here now that aren't going to affect that running process. If I leave here and come back in, so let's say I disconnect, this is going to stay up and running, and it'll run for quite some time. I've had one running now for the last couple of weeks with no issues. So if I go back in here one more time, I want to show you now how do I get back into that session. So I'm going to go back into my authorization here, get my PPK file, go back into my address here. I should have gotten rid of that by now, but these are just impromptu videos. No real rhyme or reason or thought behind them for these. And I'm going to go back into login as Ubuntu. And now that I'm back in here, I'm going to type in screen -R. And screen -R will reattach to a running session. When I hit enter, it's going to take me right in there, and it's going to show me that I'm still in there. To leave again, control A and then D. Control A, release it, and then hit D. And that's going to disconnect that session. And then I can just type in exit and get out of there. So I know some of you guys might wonder how to make that all happen, and hopefully that's pretty clear. I might shoot that as a separate video somewhere down the road, but I just thought I'd include it as bonus content on this video, because as I was logging out of this video for the night, I thought to myself, it's probably going to come up. So anyway, again, hopefully you enjoyed the videos and they helped you in some way. If they did help you in some way, the only thing I'm going to ask for is this. Go out to Gekko, and when you go into the documentation section, down here, right here, if Gekko helped you in any way, you can always leave. That's not me. That's Mike Rossum or Rossum or whatever. That's the guy that wrote this thing. If you want to tip somebody, tip this guy, because he's the one that's putting this together out there and giving everybody the opportunity to utilize it to make some money. So I want to make sure that we take care of him. If you don't already have a Binance account, you could help me by logging in to set up a Binance account and actually utilizing the information that I have on the overlay there with our affiliate ID. Okay? Again, hopefully these videos helped you guys, and I hope that you have a great time, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.